Good morning, and welcome to another vitriolic version of Diatribes from the Voice of Doom. Now here's your verdant and vitalizing host, Voice of Doom. Morning, everybody. I am going to do another one, much to most people's dismay. But it's St. Patrick's Day today, so I figured I'd commemorate that particular high holy day with a diatribe. So before I get into the latest issues, verdant means green, by the way. You can see the prefix VER, Vermont, Verdi, Vermilion, whatever. It means green. Okay. St. Patrick's Day, when I was a kid, you best wear green when you go to school. Nowadays, I don't think it matters as much. In fact, I think they would prefer no green at all. Just drab. Grays, shades of gray. But back in the old days, you better wear green, and if you forgot to wear green on St. Patrick's Day, the teacher had little ribbons to pin on your shirt. Otherwise, you'd be pinched to death, because back then they pinched you if you didn't wear green. So that was a very important day to keep in mind when you were a kid in the 60s. Nowadays, St. Patrick's Day is celebrated by usually going out to the local pub and getting toasted. And there's a good reason for that. I'll tell you a few little things. St. Patrick was actually British, a Romano-Briton, 5th century. He was captured by the Irish, taken to Ireland as a slave. White as the driven snow, and he was enslaved by Irish people. So there should be reparations there. I don't know how they're going to work that out, but the Brits should be compensated by the Irish for their enslavement. But he was a slave for 6 years, and then he escaped, went back to Britain, became a priest and was ordained, and was later named the Bishop of Ireland. He wanted to go back. It was a pagan area. And even though they had enslaved him, he wanted to go back and preach the word of God and spread Christianity. He started Christianity in Ireland in the 5th century. And there's various legends about him. But one that might stick out was that there was an innkeeper who was kind of stingy. She was an old crone, and she didn't give out much whiskey to their customers. And St. Patrick didn't like that and said, there's a demon in your cellar who's about to eat you because of your, I won't say the word, your stingy ways. There's another word that begins with N, but that's been banned because it sounds too much like another word. So, I won't say that, but the lady heeded his word and he left, and when he came back, he found out that the lady had been filling their cups to the brim with whiskey, which is a lot of whiskey, but back then they probably could hold their liquor a little better than now. And so St. Patrick said, on my feast day, which I didn't know that, I don't know how he knew he was going to have a feast day, but St. Patrick's Day is a day on the liturgical calendar of the Catholic Church to honor St. Patrick. So all these holidays are based on old religions. Now, he said we should celebrate St. Patrick's Day by having a glass of whiskey. So that's what people do. And it's just one more holiday to either get drunk or be forced to buy stuff for somebody. We'll leave that there. Got a note from my fan asking about my opinion of this drone downing, and it's like, it's just slow provocation. Let's see what we can do. Let's take it up just a little notch. A little notch and a little notch. First we'll send a balloon over. Then we'll disable a drone, make sure that we have plausible deniability, even though everyone can see on the video what happened. The plane went by and sprayed fuel on it and then cut it off and clipped off the propeller, whatever. $30 million drone, which isn't that expensive by today's standards, cost $5,000 to make the drone, and then $999,000 to pay off the generals and the executives at Northrop and whoever else was involved, the administrators and politicians. I mean, a drone doesn't really cost $30 million to make. It costs like a few thousand, but we'll leave that there. That's my opinion. Is they're going to keep ratcheting it up bit by bit, because Russia can't just fly one of their MiGs or whatever they have and just shoot an American fighter jet out of the sky and blow the pilot up in international waters, because that would probably raise a few eyebrows. We'd probably have to send a very strongly worded letter to Putin about that. But they can shoot down a drone or disable a drone. Let's be accurate. But we'll see what the next provocation is, and then the next one, and the next one, and then there will finally be a provocation that ends in a mushroom cloud. And then be a very strongly worded letter after that. But I wanted to continue on the same vein as my last diatribe. I was talking Jeffrey Marsh and wokism and virtue signaling, and how it's almost getting to be so absurdist, so satirical, that even the people that are doing the virtue signaling and they're putting on the extravaganzas even must know that they're real jokes to everybody. But they have to flap their flippers like seals to show support for various people who are struggling with their identity. So what's funny is that sooner or later, sooner or later, you get conflicts of interest vying with each other. Because people are people, they have their opinion. And sooner or later, when you're woke, you run into a brick wall, and I'll tell you how. Back in 2001, I believe it was September 11th, they drove 3 airliners into buildings, and one more was driven into the ground with people in it. And many thousands of people died, and people were up in arms about it. In what used to be America, we actually cared. Nowadays, I don't know what would happen, but there was backlash, especially in the first week or two after the buildings were still smoldering. There were groups of people that were going to take it out on somebody, and they did their things. And what's ironic is most of the people that ended up getting, persecuted were Sikhs, because they had the turbans. So you have a turban, you're an Islamic terrorist. And then it got to the point where the wokesters back in those days said, you're an Islamophobe if you are against these jihadists. And every religion has had its extremists and fanatics. So nobody gets off scot-free. Spanish Inquisition. I don't want to go into detail, but every religion gets crazy and has certain portions of people that kind of take hold and cause bloodshed. So the Muslim Islamic religion is no different. The point is they were saying you're an Islamophobe if you think that every Muslim is a terrorist. Well, that might be true. I mean, you can't say that, but that doesn't mean you're a phobic. I'm afraid of anyone with a beard that has an Arabic accent. Alright. I'm telling you about this to move on. Suddenly you're a transphobe if you don't agree with Jeffrey Marsh that you should have no contact with your parents if you're trans, and they don't accept it fully and take you straight to the doctor for an operation. You should cut off all ties and make ties with like-minded people who will help you. And an Islamic comedian was on TikTok commenting on her opinion on that, and she said that sounds wrong, it sounds creepy, it sounds weird. And then all the wokesters are jumping on the back of this Islamic woman. So you see how it's going to get very confusing. You're going to have one segment who are protected and going against another segment, and whoever is the flavor of the month is going to have the trump card, to coin a phrase. So that should be obvious to everybody how this wokesterism is going to consume itself, because either you're a transphobe or you're an Islamophobe. And they're all laughing because they put a picture on TikTok or whatever of the woman without her hijab on, which is something that to them is an important thing for their, it's, you know, for their humility or for their dignity. It'd be like posting naked pictures of someone on the internet because you want to get back at them. So you see how these wokesters are going to cause a lot of trouble? And how this wokeism is going to cause global repercussions that start with ripples and end with tidal waves washing us all away. And I'll give you an example. Banks going, they're in liquidation, they're insolvent. Why are they insolvent? Because they made bad investments. Because they weren't thinking like bankers, they were thinking like let's virtue signal and have song and dance commercials and talk about how diverse we all are. We're all different and we're all incompetent, but at least we're all different. So they make bad investments, and then Petrie comes to the rescue, because the FDIC, Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation, has so much money to give to depositors where the banks go under. Well, they didn't have near enough because you only have a few $1 billion. Now, Roku, I heard on the radio, had $450 million in this SVB bank. They're going to get all their money back from Petri dish, but it's not at the taxpayer expense. He's going to get that money from his own funds that he pilfered from China and Ukraine. So that is very good that he was an extortionist, because now he has all that extra money to pay SVB to give to Roku. And there will be other banks, and sooner or later even Petrie will run out of money, and then those people won't even get their FDIC insured money because there won't be any. So, or they'll just print $1 trillion bills and give one to each person, and then we'll see what happens after that. So I wanted to throw those snippets of snappets in that occurred to me that I think are extremely ironic, because this wokeism is not just virtue signaling to everybody else how you better think, but now people are starting to get hurt. These rich people are starting to feel it. when the banks go under, and there's going to be more and more banks going under, and we will be doomed soon, economically and physically and emotionally and mentally. So we'll leave it there. I think I said quite a bit in just a few minutes. I hope everybody enjoys it, and I'll see you next holiday.